So we're starting the second half now with Gareth Harper from Peace Players International. Gareth has worked in the community relations peace building field for almost 20 years and took up the position of Managing Director with Peace Players in March of 2009, having previously served as Programme Manager with the Rural Community Network. Gareth grew up in Newcastle, County Down and has an honours degree in geography, a master's in town and country planning from Queen's University Belfast, and he also holds a postgraduate certificate in management and an MBA from Open University. He is a certified practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and most recently completed a level 5 certificate in coaching and mentoring. So we're very pleased to have Gareth here today, so you're very welcome.
Mental note to self, update the bio on the Facebook page. Yeah, a lot of details and stats up there. Just after lunch, so one of the things I want to just try out with you here, my wife and 2 daughters suggested this morning to me. I was going to get you to do some silly icebreaker thing, but she suggested to me this morning, just try this out. So slightly linked to the presentation, not completely linked to it, but just where you're sitting, so you're nicely spaced out. You're 2 meters apart there, exactly where you are, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to pick one other person, and I want you to try and have a conversation with them, and I want you to ask them this one question and try and hear their answer. What did you miss most during COVID? Just have a quick conversation with the person, someone that's nearby you, 2 meters, but make sure you keep the distance, but have a quick conversation with the person there, what you missed most during COVID. So is there somebody behind you, maybe you have to turn around, or... Three, 2, 1, boom, and we're back in the room. Okay. All right, so indulge me a little bit. How was that? It was good? Grand? Easy? Even with the 2 meter restrictions? Yeah. What sort of things did folks miss most during COVID? The pub? Yeah. What else? Personal interactions, yeah. Anyone else? Goodness else? Freedom, yeah, absolutely. Donegal, okay. Ability to travel, yeah, sure. Anybody miss the hairdressers? I thought hairdressers was going to come up. Yeah. No, the idea doing that was just to get people thinking about the new challenges we face in this situation, this circumstance. So I was hoping somebody was going to say, it was really hard to hear because everybody else was buzzing around and you were 2 meters away from me, so it was difficult to have the conversation. And I had a mask on, so it was a little bit not to hear people. I thought that was going to come out of it as well, but it's just about presenting some of the challenges that we face. So Peace Players, we're in the business around building relationships, but there's an extra added challenge right now around how do you build relationships in a space and a time and a place where these restrictions are in place. So I'm going to tell you about all the fantastic stuff that Peace Players does to try and build relationships using sport as the vehicle for that. But just have that in your head around what new challenges does an organisation like Peace Players or the Gaelic Athletic Association face in the future in terms of dealing with this new normal, whatever it happens to be. I should have started off saying thank you very much for the invite today. It's great to have the opportunity to come down and have the conversation, to meet and talk with you all today. As I was introduced, my name's Gareth Harper. I work for and have the privilege to work for a fantastic organisation called Peace Players. I am the Managing Director of the programme in Northern Ireland and have been now for almost 11 years. So what does Peace Players do? Well, it says it up there, children who play together can learn to live together. Does exactly what it says in the tin. That's our operating philosophy. Simple but powerful premise that children who play together can learn to live together. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Peace Players' work around the world and how it uses the sport of basketball, the neutral sport of basketball, to bridge divides, develop leaders and to change perceptions in areas of conflict around the world. And then I'll specifically talk about what we do in Northern Ireland and how our programme manifests there as well. So in terms of what we do, our objectives, we have 3 core objectives. The first one up there is to bridge divides. So we use sport and specifically the game of basketball, and we deliberately use basketball in the context of Northern Ireland because sports in Northern Ireland traditionally can be divisive along sectarian lines. So predominantly in the north of Ireland, Gaelic sports are played by members from the Catholic community, or Catholic tradition. Rugby by, not exclusively, by folks from the Unionist tradition, Protestant tradition. Soccer is played by everybody, but as you know, we have 2 national teams on the island of Ireland. So if you're from Northern Ireland and you're a Catholic, you probably support the Republic of Ireland football team. And if you're a Protestant from Northern Ireland, you probably support the Northern Ireland football team. Not exclusively. Second objective is around developing leaders. So Bridge Divide's the first bit of it. That's about providing the contact. So some of the stuff which Dermot talked about this morning, about the sports coming together and providing opportunities for kids to get to know each other, to bridge the divide. So in Northern Ireland, is only 7% of kids attend integrated schools. The rest attend either a predominantly Catholic or a predominantly Protestant school. So the opportunities for kids to come together in the north through sport or in education or in housing in different ways are very, very limited. So part of our programme is just about using sport as a vehicle to bridge that divide, to bring kids together. The second important part of it there is around developing leaders. So having created the opportunity for kids to get to know each other through contact, we try to facilitate a conversation and a dialogue with them around that and hopefully build their skills to be leaders and advocates for peace in the future. And the third one then is around changing perceptions. So basically we want kids to get to the point where GAA isn't just for Catholic kids in the north. Everybody can play football, everybody can play Gaelic football or Gaelic sports. It's about changing perceptions. All Protestants aren't bad. All Catholics aren't bad. That's essentially the underlying principles of what Peace Player is about. And what we do then is we try to challenge others to replicate what we do. And Peace Players is all about showing what's possible. So it's trying to show what's possible out there, what can be achieved. Very forward-looking, progressive, trying to think about what actually can be achieved. Our mission then, this is united across the world. So Peace Players has sister projects, or no, Peace Players Northern Ireland has sister projects in Cyprus, South Africa, the Middle East, and now has programmes operating also in the United States. But wherever Peace Players operates, we have the same shared mission. So our mission is to unite communities in conflict through sport. And our vision is of individual and communal connections, creating a more peaceful world. And sport is the vehicle of choice across the world is basketball. And there's very specific reasons why basketball works in certain places where other sports may not work. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. Our work is underpinned by 3 core values. So the first one is seeing people as people. So not as objects or as obstacles or as vehicles or as something that's going to get in your way to achieve, but actually seeing people as people. So you strive to see them as a person rather than as a label or from a position of prejudice or from some baggage that you may have about them or a stereotype. And basically you try to see everyone's humanity, develop the relationship with the person, get to know the person, not the shirt they're wearing or the church they attend, the school they go to, the football team they support. Get to know the person. The second one then is around a culture of collaboration. So we very strongly believe that if we work together and we draw on each other's individual strengths, we're more likely to succeed. So we use our own unique talents together for a greater good, so a culture of collaboration. Third one's a really interesting one, is about an inside-out transformation. So at Peace Players we talk about being committed first to change yourselves. And a really, really good analogy we're talking about this is an inside-out transformation is to start with yourself and through your own example and changing your own perceptions, you can begin to inspire and be an influencer of others. So we're all wearing these masks today, and the perception is you're wearing this mask to keep yourself safe. You're not actually wearing the mask to keep yourself safe, you're wearing the mask to keep everybody else safe. So you're actually having that outward mindset. You're thinking about others all the time in terms of that. So that inside-out transformation, start with yourself and begin to think about yourself and how you are and your way of being and how that potentially then can impact upon others. So how do we do it? There's like 5 pillars, I suppose, which underpin everything that Peace Players does, but we're particularly dedicated to creating programmes that engage local communities in sustained ways. So Dermot earlier talked about this morning about regular and sustained contact. Absolutely very, very important to our programme and underpinned by it. So no matter where Peace Players operates around the world, there's 5 programmatic pillars that underpin everything they do. So there's this big one around local ownership. So I joined Peace Players in Northern Ireland in around 2008. But up until that time, Peace Players started in Northern Ireland about 2002. It had been run by Americans. So Americans came to Northern Ireland with their sport called basketball, came in, did some brilliant stuff, and then left. So around 2008, the organisation took the position to say, look, if this is to be sustainable longer term, we have to invest in local capacity and local leadership. So I was the first Indigenous Managing Director, and part of my job then was to build a local board and establish the reputation here. And rather than being an American programme operating in Northern Ireland, we became a Northern Ireland programme operating with added American value. It's the way we sort of switched it on its head. We tried to think about it. Our programme, as I've mentioned already, is underpinned by this idea of peer leadership and peace education. So we have, as well as giving our kids the opportunity to connect with each other, contact theory, playing sports together, we also then leverage the relationships that develop on the basketball court as teammates to help to develop friendships and long-term relationships between the kids. And at each of the sites then, we try to create this leadership pipeline. Basically, our programme operates with kids aged 9 right through to 25-year-olds. And what we try to do is create a leadership pipeline and progression route, which operates in Northern Ireland from being at primary school right through to becoming coaches and facilitators working back with peace players again. And I'll say a wee bit more specifically about how that leadership pipeline manifests in Northern Ireland in a second. Mentioned this already, but where we work, there's pictures of around the world. So South Africa, the Middle East, Cyprus, of course, Northern Ireland, and then Washington, D.C.'s on there as well, because that's where our headquarters are. So Peace Players back in 2002 was established by two American basketball players. They lived in Washington, D.C. Their father was a pretty successful lawyer in the city, but the guys toured the world playing basketball, came to Ireland and saw the potential of using their neutral sport of basketball to help bring the two traditions in Northern Ireland together. And that was when it started back in 2002. They've been on then to foreign programmes in South Africa, in the Middle East and Cyprus subsequently. But that's where it came from. We still have a headquarters in DC, and we're connected to all those other sites. And then recently, Peace Players have started to develop programmes in the US. So as you know, the US is not the best shape at the minute. So it's taken the Peace Players model around conflict transformation and how sport can be used to build relationships. And trying to employ that in some of the big cities there. So Peace Players has programs there in Brooklyn, in Baltimore, in Los Angeles, in Detroit and in Memphis. And on each of those sites, the initial idea was about trying to create connections between the disenfranchised youth, black youth, and law enforcement. But actually, when they get into those communities, that's so far away at the minute, and the relationships are so bad there, that the focus has been more about inter-territory conflicts there, so between those large housing estates or large housing developments and the rivals that exist between gangs. But in each area, it's around how sport can be used to help create a conversation, create a safe space for folks who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to connect to do so. So Cyprus, those of you know Cyprus, but Cyprus is split right along the middle with the UN buffer zone right slap bang in there, and that's where Peace Players has to operate. So in Cyprus, the programme's all about uniting the Greek Cypriot population in the south of the island with the Turkish Cypriot population in the north of the island. So we think we have a tough in Northern Ireland. Those guys are dealing with two different languages, two different cultures, two different traditions, and a buffer zone in terms of trying to make it happen. But that's their operating space there. And essentially, they're all about trying to use basketball as a tool and the vehicle to try and improve relationships between those two traditions, between the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots on the island. South Africa, again, another interesting one. So South Africa originally, and you would think it's automatically about race, and it's about connections and conflict between the black and the white population and the coloured population. Yes, it absolutely is, but increasingly it's more just about inter-community conflicts within Durban in particular is where the programme's focused. And it's conflicts between different factions, different gangs, different communities, but also has a real focus on trying to give the youth there a real sense of purpose and aspiration for the future. So in South Africa, very recently during COVID, it's been interesting. We've connected better with the other sites, and we've connected our youth with the other sites. So our kids are talking, oh, it's terrible, I can't get to use my PlayStation because somebody's using the internet, or I can't play online. And the kids from South Africa are going, well, you know what, I have no food, and I have no dinner. I don't know whether I'm going to get a meal tomorrow. So it's been a really positive spin-off from the COVID situation to connect our youth with some of the youth that are on the programme in other parts of the world. And just so these guys can understand the different conflicts, the different challenges that are being faced in each of those spaces. We're also in the Middle East. So the programme operates there mainly in Jerusalem. It also focuses in and around northern Israel and in the central region. there, not surprisingly, the programme is about developing relationships and using basketball as a tool to unite the Arab and the Jewish population there, and giving opportunities for those young people from different traditions the opportunity to connect with each other. Massive, massive issue there. Still a hot conflict. So Northern Ireland, we don't have a hot conflict anymore. It's a cold conflict. We have our peace process since 1998. In Israel, it's still very, very real for those guys, and I've had the opportunity to stay there. But it's normal for our kids in the Israel programme to, mid-basketball match, have to go and get in the bunker because the sirens go off as there's missiles coming in. So it's not unusual for that to happen. But again, the beauty of that international connection is that our kids from Northern Ireland get to witness and talk to kids from there that are involved with it. Israel's really interesting. So in Northern Ireland, basketball works because it's a minority sport. It's not GAA, it's not soccer, it's not rugby. It works because it's a minority sport, and kids come to it from a fairly level skills base because not all of them play it. And also the American factor is really attractive to kids in Northern Ireland. But in Israel, if you open up the back page of the Bethlehem Times or the Jerusalem Times, it's the basketball results. It's a massive sport there, massive, massive sport. And that's what makes it attractive there, particularly to the Palestinian or Arab kids, because they don't actually have lots of opportunity to engage with sport. So there's a bi-communal team that's been created, which is really, really significant. And the reason why the programme has gained precedence there is because that team has become really successful. It's a girls' team, so the focus is on female players there, which is really cool. But they've become really successful, and it's attracted attention to what Peace Players is about there, and how basketball is being used to potentially go across the divide in that situation where it's really messy and nasty, but it also is showing this is what's possible. And that's a key message from what I want to get across today is it's what's possible, and constantly showing what's possible using sport as a tool in the vehicle. I mentioned also the US sites, so it's shifted a little bit, as I said. Originally, the plan in the US was to take the international model and try to apply it to the big issues that are happening in the States at the minute between law enforcement and disenfranchised black youth. But it's had to shift and has to step back a little bit. There's a little bit of inter-community relationship building that happens to happen first, and the distance between law enforcement and the local community at the minute, as you know, with everything that's going on, is massive. So there's a bit of groundwork to be done there about building confidence and resilience within the communities themselves before they can even begin to think about those types of issues. So in Baltimore and in Brooklyn in particular, the focus there is really just about trying to, in Brooklyn, we work in a community called Brownsville, a neighbourhood called Brownsville. And it's one of those areas that has one of the largest concentrations of public housing in America anywhere. And basically there's massive tensions there, one with the police, but also enter tower blocks. So it's, these tower blocks where communities and kids live, so there's lots of conflict that exists within there. So basically in that space, they're trying to use basketball as a way to get kids to come together, begin to break down some of those barriers and some of the mistrusts that exist. Wee bit closer to home then, so Northern Ireland, not our most famous R in that picture up there, but so Northern Ireland, as I said, the programme was started in 2002. Very much based on that same idea, simple premise, children who play together can learn to live together. That stats up there about the integrated education. So still today, 22 years post Good Friday Agreement, we still have only 7% of our kids attending integrated schools. We still have segregated housing. Our sports are still largely segregated in terms of where they're played and how they're played. People support one or other of the two national soccer teams. Kids either play rugby or they play Gaelic sports. So still lots of divisions that exist there. But essentially what we do, as we do everywhere in the world, is we try to leverage sport and its inherent lessons of teamwork, cooperation, determination and communication just as a means to promote peace and reconciliation. And really, what we try to do in Belfast is we try to focus on those areas where conflict is most rife. So that's a picture of Belfast. So Peace Players mainly operates in Northern Ireland in Belfast and in interface areas. So a lot of what we do, our focus is about trying to go to those most difficult areas where the wickedest of problems exist and trying to make stuff happen there. The idea being, if you can make it happen there, you can pretty much make it happen anywhere. And some of the people that graduate through the programme and come through that progression become the strongest advocates for that. And I'll say a wee bit more about that in a second. So So some of our main areas of programming then, what we do. So I mentioned this leadership pipeline and progression route. So the first intervention that we have as an organisation is in the primary school setting. So with kids aged 9 years old. So that's primary 6 in the north. So primary 6 and primary 7 aged in the primary school setting. And what we do is we twin a controlled, which is Northern Irish language for Protestant, with a maintained, which is Northern Ireland accent for Northern Ireland language for a Catholic school, or predominantly Catholic school. And we twin the entire classes. The kids come together, they're put onto integrated teams, so it's not school against school, it's integrated teams, and the kids play in these new integrated teams against each other. Very simple idea being that if I want my team to be successful, I have to get on well with my teammates. Very simple. And hopefully the idea is if you get along well with your teammate and you get to know that your teammates really well, you might develop a friendship with them. And through that friendship then, you might say, well, you know what, my new friend in my basketball team who's a Catholic guy is nice. But you see all the rest of them Catholics, they're all still bad. So part of what our journey is about is making sure that once you've developed that original relationship and that connection has been made, that you leverage that relationship to have a continued conversation around what's possible. So not only is my Catholic teammate not bad, you know what? The rest of those Catholics aren't so bad either, because I know this person, I've developed a relationship with them, and I get to understand a little bit more about them. Very simple stuff, but very, very powerful stuff. And kids 9 and 10 years old, 11 years old can get this. And they actually have a lot they can teach us in some of this stuff. So that's the first area of programming. And that happens in the school during the school day, which is pretty cool. It means we get a captive audience. So Dermot talked about earlier about the various peace programs and things around. They're very, very keen on numbers. You have to have 50% of Catholic and 50% Protestant, or you can have 40 and 40 and 20 others. But in Northern Ireland, because of the way our unique school system's set up, you automatically get that balance because all the kids that go to Catholic schools are, oh, surprise, surprise, Catholic. So you automatically get that dynamic happening in that space. We also then operate the after schools program, and why that's significant is in the school setting, parents don't really get a say. Yes, we ask them, do they want to participate in the twinning program, but like most parents, the note comes home, the kids go, we're doing a primary school twinning program, the school's doing it, yeah, that's fine. But when we ask the kids then to come and get involved with peace players and kids from the other tradition in an after school setting, it's slightly different because the parent then's making that choice and the school's removed from it. So the parent has to make the decision to say, yeah, I want my kid to be a part of that program and get to engage and to continue to play basketball with their friends from the other tradition. Champions for Peace then, so kids that have been through the primary school program and the Cross Community League, this is the third part of this progression, and they've expressed an interest in thinking about how sport can be used to build relationships and to bridge divides and to change perceptions. We invite them to be part of our Champions for Peace program. So as part of that Champions for Peace program then, not only do they continue to play basketball and use sport, but they also learn key leadership skills. So they begin to think about what it means to be a leader in my community, and basically what we're doing is trying to equip them to be champions for peace and to be advocates for peace and change in their own communities, and also to equip them to be able to use sport more and more in the future to do that type of stuff. Some more stuff there. So coaches development program. So ultimately, the next stage of the progression is the kids get an interest in this program. They begin to learn how sport can be used to do this. They get an appetite for it. They've had a chance maybe to try out some of these activities in the safe space of peace players. We then train them up as coaches. So we actually train them up to be coaches and facilitators in the program themselves. And the idea being that they go back into their own areas and their own communities, and because they've been through the program, they understand it, they get it, they know what it's about, they know it's not just playing sport. They're probably best placed and best connected to the local community to enable this work to continue into the future. So that top picture there is one of, you heard Dermot talk about the game of three halves earlier, so Peace Players has been working with those guys around the game of three halves model, so it's a rugby ball, surprise, surprise, not a basketball in that picture. But that's a game of three halves event that we sort of tried to evolve, so taking the Peace Players model and applying some of the learning of that to the game of three halves, so taking the contact element of the game of three halves to the next level. International exchanges, because we're an international organisation, there's a great opportunity for kids from each of the sites to go and visit each other. So I mentioned about the conversations that have happened recently over Zoom between the sites where kids are saying, well, this is happening for me in Northern Ireland, and then there's a real reality check comes in from some of the other sites that says, well, actually, you know what? I don't know if I'm getting any food tomorrow. And so those international exchanges, whilst they're virtual at the minute, we have facilitated them in the past. So the poster there at the bottom, 2nd and 8th of August. So last week, there should have been 20 of our kids from Northern Ireland in Israel at the first ever Peace Players. Peace Players, we called it a global games. And basically, there would have been kids from Cyprus, from South Africa, from Northern Ireland, from Israel, and from the United States, all in one place, competing in one tournament, all united in this idea around how sport can be used to build and promote positive relations around the world. Didn't happen because of COVID. We had virtual twinning this time around, and we had the sites connecting in that way that I've described, but it didn't happen. So hopefully next year it can. Hopefully it can. The last bit there is a game of three halves. So Dermot mentioned the game of three halves earlier on, and essentially how it manifests within the Peace Players model is, as well as having the contact element with the kids coming together to play the three sports, there's a fourth half. So a game of three halves is already confusing, but it's a game of four halves as it manifests itself with Peace Players. So there's coaching stations which are led by coaches from each of the three codes. So Peace Players works along with the GAA, Ulster Council GAA, with the Irish Football Association and with Ulster Rugby to try and make that happen. But what we bring to the table in that one is the fourth half. So not only do kids come together, they're put on integrated teams straight away. So some of them will play Gaelic, some of them will play rugby. They've all probably played soccer, but some will support Northern Ireland, some will support the Republic of Ireland. And then the fourth half piece that we bring to it is a facilitated conversation around how sport can be used to promote diversity and asking challenging questions. Like, well, why did you not play Gaelic football? Or do you think when Mickey Hart's picking his Tyrone team that he only picks the people that are from this tradition, or the only people that are... That's how we use sport to leverage and facilitate those conversations. So that game of three halves model takes the contact element, adds that fourth half, and leverages the relationships and the conversation to try and build it more. Like, one of my really cool Peace Player stories about the game of three halves is each year we run a tournament called the Belfast Interface Games. Didn't happen this year. Couldn't happen this year. We did some virtual stuff, but it couldn't happen. But essentially what it involves is camps happen in north, south, east and west Belfast. And in each area, integrated teams come together. So kids from either side of the interface come together and they form a new team. And they develop a relationship as teammates. They get trained in Gaelic, in rugby and in soccer together, and they engage in that fourth half of community relations conversations. And Dermot talked about the importance of identity. So the kids from North Belfast play in red together, the kids from West Belfast play in green, the kids from South Belfast play in yellow, and the kids from East Belfast play in blue. So you get this new sense of shared identity, and it's trying to create something which is usually perceived as negative, which is an interface, as being something positive around the interface, Belfast Interface Games. But one of my favourite stories of this is, so our chairman's a guy called Trevor Ringland. I don't know if you know Trevor. Trevor's a rugby player, played for British and Irish Lions, played for Ireland. Good friend of mine, actually, good lad. But Trevor and I were standing in Seaview. So Seaview is the home of Crusaders Football Club, soccer club in Northern Ireland, based on the Shore Road, North Belfast. And we were hosting our flagship tournament. So the kids have all played in their camps in North, South, East and West Belfast. And at our flagship event, all those teams are bussed into one place. We chose Seaview. And at particular times of the year, that can be maybe not the most appealing place, but anyway, the kids come to that space anyway. And we hold a tournament and they all play against each other to be crowned the Belfast Interface Games champions. So Trevor and I are standing in Seaview. It's a Friday evening, about 4:30, and the bus comes in from East Belfast, which is great, fantastic, because all the other buses have come in north, south, east and west. Fine, so the bus comes in from East Belfast and the kids start getting off the bus. And Trevor and I are just chatting and we're thinking, so the press arrived yet? And how do we, yeah. And the kids get off the bus and we hear this chant, East, East, East Belfast, East, East, East Belfast. Now, I don't know if you hear that the same way I hear it. If you're from Northern Ireland, that's a loyalist sectarian chant. Like a really loud loyalist sectarian chant. So this is getting off the bus at a Game of Three Halves event in North Belfast with Peace Players, with hopefully the press about to arrive to promote and celebrate how well sport has been used to develop. So Trevor and I are there and this chant's going out, East, East, East Belfast, East, East, East Belfast. And we were looking at each other going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And then we started to see who got off the bus. And it was the kids from either side of the interface from North Belfast were getting off the bus. They had just reclaimed it. They had no connotation from that. So Trevor and I had put it in this ear, put it through our filter, and it came out this side as a loyalist sectarian chant. But until we seen who was getting off the bus, and it was kids from either side of the interface, they were just cheering for their side of the city. Completely cheering for their side of the city, had no connection to that baggage that him and I had and that filter that we applied to it. The really shocking thing was some of their parents were in the bus as well, and the parents' jaws had dropped the same way as ours had, because they heard it the same way that we had heard it. So it was an amazing sort of light bulb moment for both of us to say, actually, here's another opportunity we haven't thought about. And actually, our generation might be part of the problem here in terms of the baggage that we're dumping onto this next generation, or the assumptions we're making about this next generation. So how do we now capitalise on that they don't have that same baggage and they don't apply the same filter? So for me, that was a real light bulb moment around the opportunity that existed, and a really cool story that emerged from a game of three halves. Where are we at now? Oh yeah, so one of the things that has been really important, and Dermot mentioned in his presentation as well, is your ability to evidence impact. So we have spent a lot of time and energy trying to think about how do we capture and evidence the impact of our programme in terms of attitudinal change. And he also talked about some of the funders. So Peace Players has to follow all those same funding routes as well. And the funders are quite demanding in terms of the evidence and impact. So some of the stats that are up there, that top one there, 96% of participants said they feel comfortable playing sport that's associated with a different religious background to themselves. Like, that's massive. Sport has a great potential to unify. But if you're brought up in a household, and I'm sharing a story over lunch, when I went to school, I went to a Christian Brothers school in Northern Ireland, which automatically tells you which background I have. But we went out and played soccer at lunchtime in the playing fields, and the brothers came running out, took the ball off us, and said, "Stop playing that foreign game." Like, I know I'm not no spring chicken, but I'm not that old, and that was still around then, that was still perceived as a foreign game, and you're being told it's a foreign game. Yet our programme, if you show kids and give them the opportunity to play it, it's delivered with high-quality coaches, and coaches that are there for the right reason can get that, actually, you know what, I feel comfortable playing this because I've met someone from that background who plays this sport. And you know what, they're okay. And maybe all those other people that play that sport are okay as well. That's a key learning lesson for us. The others you can read through there, and the 99% have fun doing it. Really important aspect of what we do. If the kids come along and they're not having fun, it just won't work. They won't come back. Simple as that. They won't come back. So it has to be really fun, has to be high energy, and of high quality as well, which is why it's really important that the governing bodies are involved with us at that game of three halves. So you have quality coaching from each of the codes coming in, and the kids absolutely really appreciate having that input. Last stat down there, 84% of participants said that being in Peace Players has given them a chance they would not otherwise have had to meet people from a different religious background. That one still shocks me. 84% say they wouldn't have any other opportunity to engage with someone from the other side. So 22 years after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, 84% of participants still say this is probably one of the only chances I get to engage with people from the other side. That one always gives me a shudder. To give you a bit of an idea of the scale of what Peace Players, so last year we worked with 2,350 kids. That's pretty accurate. I don't know how we managed to get the zero rounded up, but that I'm told that's exactly what we landed on. But that's around regular and sustained contact. So it isn't one-off interventions, that's regular and sustained contact, and hopefully a progression through those programs that I talked about. So from the twinning programs, through the cross-community league, through to the Champions for Peace, through to becoming coaches and facilitators with us, hopefully, down the line. A few more stats up there. You can read in that top one there is about venues and places that they feel comfortable going to. Some of my colleagues in the office, when I told them I was coming to Croke Park today, said, "Croke Park?" They felt a bit iffy about coming to Croke Park. Strange. Was it Westlife played here last year? Westlife played here? I know there was people from the north who are mad Westlife fans who said they wouldn't come because it was Croke Park. Still. Which is nuts. So there is still a job of work there around the perceptions and how we break down the perceptions. So activities like the game of three halves and exposing kids to opportunities to see how these sports are and to be exposed to coaches that are passionate about those sports is really, really important. 63% of participants think it's a good thing to have a mix of Catholics and Protestants and other ethnic minority backgrounds in Northern Ireland. I'd love that one to be higher. 63% still are wary. And then I love that last one as well. 95% of participants indicated that they made a friend from a different religious background through Peace Players. So it's not just about being a teammate, which is great, and having respect for your teammate. And you don't necessarily have to like your teammate, provided they fulfill their role in the court or they score the goal or whatever. It's fine, you don't have to be their friend. But this is about the friendship. So you become a teammate and then you become a friend. And it's those conversations that happen as friends that help that wider engagement around all those others that are from the different background from you as well. I'm going to introduce you to AJ and Rachel. So, the video coming up that talks about AJ and Rachel, these two girls I've known for forever, pretty much. This is their Peace Players' journey. There's a video to follow this, and they talk, and they're much better talking about this than I am. But they couldn't make it down today. They would usually come along with me, and they would be here to present this stuff. But this is their journey. So at age 9, they join our primary school twinning program. AJ, if you can see her, see the girl sitting in the middle in the yellow T-shirt? That's AJ. So AJ went to Wheatfield Primary School, which is at the top of the Ardoyne Road. And Rachel is the girl standing in the red uniform at the back with her hands like this. To the right at the back, that's Rachel. So they met each other for the first time through that primary school twinning program. So I don't know if you know about the Holy Cross dispute or about what happened in Ardoyne in 2001. That's the two primary schools that were right in the middle of that. So I said that Peace Players goes to the most difficult and challenging areas. That's where Peace Players tries to initiate some of its first twinnings in Belfast, was right there. And when Peace Players first went there, and it was interesting, Dermot said about having one person object and then stuff not happening. When we first went to work in Holy Cross Girls in Wheatfield back then, 2002, I think we tried to start working there. Some of the parents from Wheatfield Primary School, which is I'll use a language, controlled Protestant primary school from that neck of the woods, threatened court action against the school to say, no, I don't want my kids participating in this, and threatened court action against the school and said, absolutely not, my kid's not participating in it. But what was really, really cool was all the other parents stepped up and said, actually, this needs to happen. And I do want my kid to participate. This has gone too far. I don't want my kids to participate. So they stood up to the one or two people that were objecting, and as a result, it happened. And I think there's something really, really important in that in terms of lessons around not letting those that hate most, who are in the minority, and a lot of times dictate what everybody else does. So in that instance, it wasn't about Peace Players forcing it or the school forcing it. It was the other people in the community who stepped up and actually said, no, this is too important. This needs to happen. So anyway, sorry. They met at age 9 in primary school. They took part in the Super Sports Day. So Super Sports Day was a precursor to the game of three halves. So Super Sports Day was basically introducing the other three sports into the mix with the Peace Players along with basketball. So there's a Gaelic ball, there's a rugby ball and a soccer ball in there, and there's some of the coaches from those codes involved in that. And in 2010, we did our first ever Super Sports Day as it was then, and it happened at Ballysillan Leisure Centre. So if you know that neck of the woods in Belfast, you probably don't. The top of the Ardoyne Road, there's Holy Cross Girls Primary School on one side of the road, Wheatfield Primary School is on the other side of the road. They're literally 100 yards apart, Holy Cross Girls, the name tells you, Catholic school. Wheatfield is a Protestant primary school. And the two schools were in the middle of that dispute back then. When we first went to work there, Peace Players used to have to do single identity work in each school, just to say, like, hey, basketball, Americans, yay. And they got on board, and they got involved. Had we went in with the Game of Three Halves model then, they would have went, take yourself off. It wasn't going to happen. But because we went in with basketball, that neutral sport, and the Americans and the high five, they probably also saw dollar signs, which was absolutely not the case. There was no dollar signs involved. They did get involved. And that program progressed from being about doing work in individual schools to being about having the kids start to go together. So we used to bus them on two separate buses, had to be two separate buses, even though they were on either side of the road from each other, to the Queen's PEC, so the Physical Education Centre of the university, because it was perceived to be a neutral space. So two separate buses, kids on the buses, to the venue, had fun together, back on their separate buses, back up into Ardoyne, which was grand for a while. Eventually then, we got to the point where, well, you want to share a bus, we could do more if you share one bus, it cuts down the cost. They got in one bus, and we still had to ship them out of Ardoyne down to the Queen's PEC. Eventually then, it got to the point where, you know what, we're ready to do some more stuff, and they started going into each other's schools. So the programme now has an element where each school hosts the other. So the first week of the session, they just walk literally across the road, but they'd never been in each other's spaces before, but each school hosts the other as part of the twinning. They're one of the first weeks of the twinnings, which is really cool. And then that 2010, which was massive, was we had the Super Sports Day where the kids were playing Gaelic, rugby and soccer together at Ballysillan Leisure Centre. And at the top of the Ardoyne Road, there's a hole in the hedge that you can actually walk down. So it's not official access to the leisure centre, but the kids walk down together from their schools through that hole in the hedge to the leisure centre and played the Game of Three Halves together, which was massive. And that was an 8-year journey to get there, but it was massive the fact that they were able to do that, and their parents were allowing them to do that, which was fantastic. So from a place of absolutely not, and I'm threatening court action, to Yeah, it's okay. And not just basketball. I'm going to allow them to play Gaelic football and get involved with rugby and stay with the others. So, massive journey. 13, AJ and Rachel then join the Belfast Interface League, so the cross-community league that I talked about. And they get to play and represent their part of the City North. So there they are in their North Belfast red T-shirts, which they're very, very proud of. So it's not one side of interface against the other. It's a united interface and united in that red colour. They then joined the Champions for Peace programme because they expressed an interest in becoming leaders and saying, well, how do I start to give back? In that, at 15, they got involved with our coaches development programme, so we trained them up to be coaches and facilitators and to be engaged with the programme. And now, AJ and Rachel are 20, so that's them back in, I think that's Wheatfield Primary School, coaching kids in their own primary schools on our programme, delivering the twinning the same way they were involved with all those years ago. Yeah, so that's their journey. There's a video here, which I'm going to show, hopefully. This place on the surface looks fantastic. It's when you scratch the surface a little bit, you begin to see the underlying issues that are there.
You're taught growing up that you go to this school and you're this, and they go to that school and they're that, and it's just really clear from growing up that you know that there's a difference, you're kind of not really told otherwise.
Back in 2001, Northern Ireland and North Belfast in particular made the world's media for all the wrong reasons.
At first, it looked like things might be calmer today.
Right in the middle of that conflict, you have two primary schools located on either side of the Ardoyne Road, literally right beside each other. On one side of the road, you have the Catholic Primary School, Holy Cross Girls, and on the other side of the road is Wheatfield Primary School, attended predominantly by Protestant kids from the surrounding area.
Parents and children were spat at and abused.
My name's Rachel Modden. I'm 19. I went to Holy Cross Girls Primary School.
My name is AJ, I'm 19, and I went to primary school in Wheatfield, which is just up the street. Basketball, it comes from America. We associate basketball with Americans over here. So just having that sport that doesn't have a religion attached to it was good because you were learning a new sport. This is a really, really class sport and you can play it with your friends, and we just kind of stuck at it because it was just something new, something different.
So I began working with the two girls when they were about 9, 10 years old. I was the head coach on the twinning between Holy Cross Girls and Wheatfield.
When I was 10, I met Rachel. Holy Cross came into Wheatfield, and I remember we were all sitting in the classroom. It was kind of a bit daunting. We were like, what's going on here?
I had a lot of opinions about the other side, which were formed from the neighbourhood which I've grown up in. Going into the twinning programmes, I was terrified. And then as I met AJ, I realised that a lot of stuff that were said weren't true.
The amazing thing about this place is we have these huge walls which divide the two traditions here. Huge walls, but the people living on either side experiencing exactly the same troubles, experiencing exactly the same problems, particularly in areas like where AJ and Rachel go to school.
When we were growing up, like talking about things, like really stupid things, like, oh, I did that too. Like we were basically had the same childhood, but different because I was a Protestant and she was a Catholic.
Why Peace Players works here is it creates a safe space where young people from different backgrounds and different traditions can come together, play a sport together, develop relationships and friendships together through playing on integrated teams, and then off the back of that, leverage those relationships that develop on the basketball court to develop real friendships.
Everybody jokes because you don't see us out without the other one. So if you see one, you know the other one's going to be there. Whenever I need something, or whenever she needs something, or just whenever she just needs a friend, or I'll need a friend, like the first person I'd call would be AJ.
We see each other literally every day. I think I went on holiday there for 10 days and it was like I lost my arm. She's just that one person that you know is always going to be there. We're family now, we're beyond friendship.
The really cool thing for us in Peace Players is we're about children who play together can learn to live together. Those two guys not only have learned to play together and to live together, but have developed a really strong friendship. But we've also sparked something in them, and that thing that we sparked in them is a want to go back into their own areas and to continue to make a difference in the future. Our aim and our vision is to develop loads and loads of more AJs and Rachels everywhere.
It will take a few generations to get through the legacy of the Troubles, but I think having people like our participants, having people like AJ and Rachel, is the start of a fresh generation that sees more hope, that sees more possibility, that sees more chance for a shared future.
if everyone in Peace Players or around Northern Ireland had a similar friendship to AJ's and mine. It would be nice. I think it would be hard at first to try and get everyone together, but I think we could do it with Peace Players.
1, 2, 3. What we try to instill is a sense of responsibility. You have a role here to play in making this place better. And we're going to try to give you some skills, some experiences, and some opportunities to allow you to do that. Your purpose in life is about making a difference and helping to make a difference for those around you. That's absolutely what it's about.
Yes, I just love those two guys, but I've just noticed that COVID hasn't been kind to my hair. I've got a whole lot grayer. Just I have a couple more slides just before I finish up. That's a picture of the team. The Peace Players team was taken about 3 years ago now. Again, I'm not as grey on that one either. But this girl at the front taking the selfie, that's Nas, Nasifi Kafi. So Nas was a programme graduate of this programme in South Africa. And Nas came across and served as a fellow in Northern Ireland for 2 years, which is pretty cool. And now she's my equivalent in South Africa. She's the managing director of the programme in Durban, which is just, that's the goosebump stuff for me. It's just massive and showing the potential where these guys can go and trying to ignite that. In the future, I want AJ and Rachel to go off and be that person as well. We talk about being in the business of doing ourselves out of business. That's absolutely what it's about. AJ and Rachel will do my job 100 times better than I can ever do it, just because they've been through it and they lived there and have done it. Also not pick the guy in the dodgy brown jumper in the middle. That's Life. Life's currently with us on a fellowship. He's due to go in September time. Life just came and he really got into communication, so he's lifted our social media stuff to a whole other level, which is fantastic. And Life's about to go to the US at the minute, and he's going to become a member of our global support team, helping them globally to look at their social media and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's that progression, not only for our participants, but for participants from each site to go to each other's site and to learn from each other and to grow and develop and try to create that progression within Peace Players, but also that progression beyond to go and become bigger and better and to have their impact and to ignite that spark through their Peace Players experience. I'm going to finish, I wasn't going to do this, I'm going to finish with just one more story about this idea of baggage. And it's about a couple of friends of mine, a guy called Dave. Dave and I are, he's a big rugby fan, massive rugby fan. So if you're from Northern Ireland, you automatically, oh, Dave's a Protestant. Yeah, he is. So Dave's a Protestant from Northern Ireland, massive rugby fan. Was in the RAF, so he's a member of the security forces for years and years and years in Northern Ireland. And he has a son called Adam. But Dave, progressive, has sent his kid to an integrated school in Northern Ireland. So Adam is one of the 7% of kids that attend integrated schools in Northern Ireland. And at that integrated school, Adam got introduced to Gaelic sports. Never played Gaelic football before, ever. Never ever played Gaelic football before. So we got the opportunity there to play Gaelic football. Got quite good. He was a big guy, he played rugby, was really good, enjoyed it, loved it. Came home, started talking to his dad about it, got really excited. Asked his dad, I want to join a club. So alarm bell started to go off for Dave then, because Dave's like, my whole experience in the security forces was you don't go near GAA clubs. It's just not a safe place. So he had this dilemma going on. His son loved the sport. He'd been introduced to it in the integrated school, but actually there was a still barrier that existed for him in it. So this went on for a little while anyway, but they were at home one night around the dinner table, and Dave told me this story, and one actually coming down here to watch a rugby match. I don't even know if he knows I still tell the story, but on the bus he was saying that Adam came home one day and they were sitting at the table and he asked, out of the blue, just completely out of the blue, Dad, what's a Republican? And he'd never thought that this question was going to come from anywhere before, but Dave, being Dave, said, right, okay. He built himself up, so he tried to explain what a Republican was, and he said, well, in Northern Ireland there's those who recognise the whole system, blah, blah, went on, and there's those that actually don't recognise the Republican are part of the UK and want to stay part of it. And Dave's watching Adam as this happened, and Adam's just glazing over completely, just gone, glazed. And Dave says to Adam, where did you hear that term, Republican? And Adam said, The Simpsons. The Simpsons. Again, baggage, filters, all these things you apply to it. So if you take away anything from what I said, it's about possibility, about hope, and what can be achieved through sport, and also making sure that those who want to make a difference are given the best opportunity to do it, and also that small minority that want to stop stuff from happening aren't left in control and allowed to make the decision. So thank you so much for listening. Cheers.